Hello everybody, welcome to this new video on Enphase. So this video is titled Enphase Bright Future, right? Pun intended. I believe Enphase has a very bright future, being at the heart of the solar energy. And I actually happen to believe that solar is the future. Solar is the purest way for us to get energy, right? All plants get energy from the sun. Oil is, former forests that decayed. That's all sun energy. We get our energy from the sun, and it just makes sense to use that sun to excite electrons in a piece of silicon, which is what solar is. I realize this is a bold thing to say, but actually, the deeper you dig into the technology of solar, I think it's a conclusion that most reasonable thinkers will get to. That solar is actually the cheapest technology, and I've invested thousands of hours in this, and I put my money where my mouth is, because obviously Enphase is a very big position for me, so I invest in solar. I have a credible commitment to this. I don't say this because of some green energy dream or anything like that. In fact, I don't ever bring up green energy when I talk about solar. Solar to me is a technological revolution, period. It is a better technology, period, and better technologies win. And in fact, I just want to emphasize that when I talk about Enphase and when I appear so bullish about Enphase, I have data to back me up. If you look at Enphase's return over the past 10 years, you can see that Enphase, when you look at the S&P 500, Enphase is the second highest return company in the S&P 500. Right after Tesla. And if you actually shorten it to 5 years, you see that Enphase outperformed Tesla. So there's something going on under Enphase. And Enphase, very few people cover Enphase, but I think it's important to realize that Enphase has a monopoly in the key underlying the solar revolution, which is the microinverter. Enphase is a quasi-monopoly for microinverters, and microinverters are the way of the future. They are the superior technology within solar, in my view, in my opinion, which is why I'm very, very bullish on Enphase. And what prompted this video is this amazing short YouTube clip from Fully Charged Show on Australia, where they talk about solar heaven, where they talk about this state in Australia, where you have solar everywhere, and the average of Australia is like 1 out of 3 homes has solar everywhere over there. So it's very, very big. And I think Australia and what's happening with solar in Australia can help us predict what will happen to the rest of the world. Just like Norway was, if you were early Tesla investor, you followed Norway only on. And, if you were to be the one who noticed Norway in 2015, 2016, 2017, right? And you look at the way that Norway did things, you could have foreseen things happen in EVs, in electric cars, right? Norway acted as a foretell, a foresign of what was to come. I believe Australia actually really, really acts for us as a way to see into the future and see what's going on. And so this video that I highly recommend talks about what's going on in Australia right now with solar. And some of your data is absolutely stunning. In Australia, 1 out of 3 homes has solar. And solar is the #1 source of energy generation in Australia, right? It's usually natural gas or nuclear, depending on the country you look at. Not in Australia anymore. That has changed. In Australia, the #1 source of power is solar energy, photovoltaic energy. And Enphase is behind that revolution. Enphase is very popular in Australia. It's very popular around the world. As they mentioned in this video, they spend a lot of time talking about Enphase and the benefits of microinverters versus string inverters. And Enphase is actually, you have 58 million inverters that Enphase has installed on over 3 million homes in 145 countries. Enphase is the company of scale. They have a lot of scale. And like I said, according to Photovoltaic magazine, Enphase, valuation of Enphase can be explained with the fact that they have close to 100% market share of microinverters. So that's why I'm buying Enphase right now in the market, because Enphase is cheap. If you look at the chart of Enphase, it's been going down for a month just because the CEO brought up an issue with stock at installers in the US, yet not even in Europe, and so the stock has been down. I don't know what the trading algorithm are doing with Enphase. I am buying Enphase. I'm very, very optimistic about Enphase. And let me show you some data that prompted some more research from you on Enphase. And I follow Enphase almost every day, but let me show you some more data on Enphase, which, keeps my bullish stance on this company. So, I did a little digging, and Enphase has shipped the equivalent of an installed capacity of 43 terawatt hours. And keep in mind, Enphase is an exponential firm. So most of these terawatt hours were shipped within the past few years. And, if you look at the theoretical generation of 43 terawatt hours around the world, which is what they've shipped in microinverters, so they are under solar panels. We're not even talking about solar here. We're just talking about the Enphase system, which are becoming the winning system in my view. That's 43 terawatt hours of theoretical installed capacity. And what you see is that the installed capacity of the US, nuclear plants, the peak capacity of nuclear plants in the US, which keep in mind, they don't always run at peak capacity. The peak capacity of nuclear in the US is 771 terawatt hours, and that's 19% of US energy. And it may, so compared to the US, the capacity of microinverters is 18 times smaller than US nuclear. Well, first of all, if you stop on that number, I bet most people would tell you solar is so tiny, much tinier than that, right? At 43 terawatt hours, that's not tiny anymore. That's really, really highly meaningful. But let's keep in mind that microinverters have seen exponential growth. If you look at the shipments of Enphase, they're up 60% year over year. So if you're up 60% year over year, it takes about 18 months for a doubling? So we are this is fascinating. We're 6 doublings away of shipments. We're 6 doublings away from having the same installed capacity as world nuclear. The whole installed nuclear capacity of the world is 6 doublings away for microinverter technology. That's why I believe there's going to be a massive wave of adoption, a massive rise of adoption. Because, and I don't need to show this again, but I'll show it anyways. I've shown it many times. This is not a linear technology. What's a linear technology is building a nuclear plant. That's a linear technology. It takes 20 years to build one. And it probably takes another 15 years to get it approved before you even start building it. That's linear, right? Natural gas plants, these are linear. They grow linearly. That is not the case of batteries, and that is not the case of solar. Solar and batteries borrow manufacturing learnings and manufacturing cost curves from the tech industry. What we've learned from making iPhones and making laptops, those learnings that we have from making these techs are now being applied to the energy revolution technology. And that's why, if you look at the cost of solar panels, it's been in an absolute free fall. It's been in a free fall. The price of solar PV technology has been divided by 10 in 10 years. And there is no reason to believe that it won't be divided by, another 5 or maybe even more than that. Right? The efficiency of solar panels in a lab right now is 48%. Installed, the typical solar panel you put on your roof right now has only 15% of efficiency. So you have a bunch of room for doubling that efficiency alone. And the cost, let's not even talk about the cost. These technologies are scaling up. The costs of solar energy or the cost of batteries is declining just as fast as the cost of computing power on your phone is declining or the cost of laptops is declining. These technologies are riding exponential cost curves that are exponentially declining. This is not the case in legacy energy. Legacy energy does not follow a path of cumulative doubling, which is why, I believe when we say we're 6 doublings away, that is exponential thinking, and I believe this is the bright future that Enphase has, because as the costs keep decreasing, these products will become more and more and more and more obvious, and they're already obvious to most buyers, to a lot of buyers in most parts of the world today. It makes sense to set up solar panels, contrary to what was even true 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, that wouldn't have been true. Today, it's true. Let me move on. So there is tremendous demand for microinverters in Australia. Absolutely tremendous. The payback, and I thought this was fascinating, the payback in Australia is about the same payback that you see in the US. A 5-year payback. That's about a 20% yearly return after tax, because you don't pay taxes on your savings. So that's an after-tax return of 20%. You'd be hard-pressed finding a 20% return on any system, on any investment, say, or on any stock after tax. You would have to invest in actually the stocks that I cover in this channel, right? No investment advice, but you would have to invest in very high growth stocks to get that type of return. Well, you can get it with a technology like solar panels. And keep in mind, these return on investments are with the extremely fat margins of installers. Installers make a boatload of money. And I'm not denying that at all. Like, the installers make a bunch of money, and they're probably overcharging just because they can. But the point is that even with installers making a whole bunch of money, you're still getting to a 5-year payback in Australia. Like, it's absolutely stunning. So homes are moving away from big box single inverters, because big box single inverters, string inverters, don't work as well. Because when you have a string inverter, there's a bunch of issues that come. One of the big issues is, for example, let's say you have a dirty panel, or you have some leaves on a panel. These panels are connected in series, which means that when the panels are connected in series, all it takes is to, say, have a problem or an issue with a panel, or you could have a panel break down, even though it's rare. You could have a panel that breaks down, and your whole string that is in series is all of a sudden down. And since most people are not going to go on their roof, having a whole string down on your roof means you got to pay maybe $1,000 to have an installer come and replace that. That's not an issue that you have with Enphase, because with Enphase, each solar panel with Enphase is its own mini solar system. So if you have any issue, or if you have a panel that's down, it's not going to take down the entire system. So you have no single point of failure with Enphase. The worst that can happen is that 1/10, 1/20th, or 1/30th of your system goes down. That's the worst that can happen with a microinverter. And another beautiful thing about microinverters is that microinverters make expansion very easy. And as homes evolve, as the needs of families evolve, it's likely that more energy is going to be needed beyond the first time you get the panels installed. So maybe when you get your panels installed, you don't have an electrical vehicle yet. You have a gas car. So maybe a few years from now, if you get an electric car, you're going to be like, well, wait a minute, oil is so expensive right now. I really want an EV, and I really want a free charge because my electric bill went up. So you would add solar panels on your roof, and now you can charge your EV. Or let's say you live in a state that has advantageous grid export tariffs, like in California with NEM-free. You can be like, okay, well, I'm going to add a few more panels. That way I can make a return on investment on these panels. These new panels that I have on my house, I can use them to feed energy into the grid and make more money. There's another advantage of microinverters. Microinverters last about twice as long as string inverters. They last about 25 years. No single point of failure. You have single planet shutoff, which means that if there is, unfortunately, an issue with the house, say you have an emergency, a fire, not necessarily related to solar panels, say you have an emergency, you have a single shut-off at the panel level where you're going to be able to have firefighters come to your house and intervene on your house, because string inverters have a bunch of issues with firefighters who can't intervene because you can't cut the power, right? And I know optimizers are a way to do it, but there's a lot of criticism against optimizers, and the best example of that, of course, is Generac, and what happened to Generac, and the homes catching on fire with Generac optimizers. If you follow the space, you know what I'm talking about. So you are in parallel, right? You're not in series. Every panel is its own solar system with Enphase and is managed separately. And you power the whole system with the software of Enphase. And Enphase has developed a state-of-the-art software. Keep in mind, as the first company who did that, they started it in 2006. That's the age of enlightened software. They were the first one to create that software. So they have, they have one step ahead, multiple steps ahead. And the grid is getting impacted in Australia. Regulators are getting worried about plants in Australia. Right? You see more and more natural gas plants being shut off, being offline, finding themselves offline more often. Because you have 30% now of the energy, 1 house out of 3 who has solar panels. And with the increases in efficiency of solar energy, most single-family homes can have enough power through solar panels, contrary to what was even true 5 years ago. And this is going to become truer and truer and truer as these technologies get better and better and better. So, here's another thing that I found to be stunning in the video that I recommend, and I'll put a link in the description. In that video I recommend, another thing that I found stunning is that with Enphase, I get very excited when I talk about Enphase. I get very excited about their whole home system. And I think it's great. But if you're being objective about Enphase, it's still the microinverter company. Like the bulk of their money, most of what they do, has to do with a microinverter. And while they have a leading position with microinverters and their management system of energy, it's still unclear whether they will have a leading position, say, in the battery space. But these Australian installers really enlighten me on this and give me a lot of confidence in the future, which is once you have your Enphase setup, right? Your unphased load setup. This is the system. You would technically have two boxes, right? You would have one box that puts all of the microinverters together, and then you would have the controller. So this is a picture of the controller. Once you have your Enphase inverters and your controller in your home, all connected to your phone, where you can control everything, then it's really up to the installer to set up whatever they want. There is no reason why an installer can't set up a Tesla Powerall if they so choose. There's no reason why they can't set up a Powerall from, say, LG Chem. They could obviously set up a battery from Enphase if they wanted to, but there's going to be tons of brands of batteries, right? They could also set up an Enphase charger for charging your car, but they don't have to do that. They can set up a Tesla charger if you have a Tesla, right? The system is really highly customizable. You can once you're done with the energy out of the panels, up to the combiner, right, and up to the controller. Once your energy gets to the controller, after that, all of this is fair game, and it can be any tech. So that's why Tesla may be doing very well with its Powerwall, and that's not going to hurt Enphase. Right? I could also see a future where a lot of people are going to decide to opt for like a very minimal battery, and they're going to figure out, well, I'm home most of the time with my EV, and so my EV is going to be my main source of power. So that's also a big deal, I think, in a few years, is people will be looking at buying an electric car. They'll be looking at this as, well, this is my home power too, right? This is not just my car, this is my home power. And since I use my power when I'm home, I'm going to have my car, plug it in, and my car is just feeding my whole system. So, and over time, of course, it's all about upgradability. So over time, if you have an Enphase microinverter system, which is essentially Enphase, they're synonyms. If you have an Enphase system, you can add more panels. And this is what this video in Australia was all about, a family adding more panels as the family grew. You can add more panels and more Enphase microsystems. But I can see a picture entirely the same with the batteries, where, you have your Tesla Powerwall. You've had your Tesla Powerwall, say, since 2015. It's now 2030. You had it for 15 years. Tesla Powerwall still works fine, but it's at, say, 70% efficiency from when you got it. It's entirely feasible for you to just add another battery on top of it. And then you have 2 batteries or 3 batteries, right? You don't need to have just one battery, even though I realize that is what they're pushing. And I realize that's what Enphase is pushing. They really want you to have the same battery as Enphase. But in all truthfulness, that is not likely to be the main way that it goes. It's likely to be a battery agnostic context with bridges between the microinverters and the batteries, right? These systems are still nascent, but it would make very little sense for a homeowner to get rid of an old battery. No, the system could just be additive to the point that you have a whole bunch of batteries powering your home and powering your system. So I hope this makes a little sense here. And I'll just finish with this. We've conclude of really what is the grand vision, I believe, of microinverter world and the Enphase world is really you have a single family home, and that roof on that single family home is what powers your life, right? Your life is powered by that. Whether it's your car, your electric car is powered by your roof, your appliances are powered by your roof, and your daily life is powered by the roof. And so you may decide, you may say, oh, I'm going to bypass the batteries to feed the home directly with electricity. That's what you can do with Enphase. You may be like, oh, I'm going to bypass the batteries in the home and I'm going to feed the power to, say, my electric car or my electric lawnmower. That's going through Enphase. You could be like, okay, well, I'm not going to use the batteries right now. The power is going to flow straight from the inverters to, say, the AC, the air conditioning unit in your house, because you want to cool the house before the sun is out, or before it gets too hot, right? You want to cool the house, so you use inertia to cool your house before your house gets too hot. You could bypass batteries to resell electricity. Maybe you're connected to the grid, and your grid connection has a very high feed-in rate, and you say, okay, I'm going to sell electricity right now. You could charge your batteries, or you could draw on your batteries at night to charge your home. But the fact that electricity is getting decentralized, that I believe single family homes will be powered at the level of the home, I think is a major mega trend. And this is a mega trend that is only likely to accentuate itself, especially as the power that you get from the grid is going to go up, right? The prices of grid electricity are only going to go up because utilities around the world are levered up. They are levered up on power plants, factories, nuclear plants that are not paid for, that are going to need to be paying for. And who pays for all of these investments? Well, the people paying for these investments are the people who still have the electric bill and subsidize these investments with the electric bill. Except technology has largely made the grid obsolete. I know it sounds out there. I know it sounds crazy. But for the single family home, keep in mind, I'm not talking about the apartment building. I'm not talking about the office tower. I'm talking about the single family home. For a single family home, you can produce your energy today. And that is available today. And I think that is a major change. And the company at the center of this change is Enphase and its microinverters technology, which is why I strongly believe in Enphase. I buy Enphase. I buy the stock quite regularly. Not investment advice, of course, not investment advice, but I really believe in this thesis. So this was not investment advice. This is just entertainment. Thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.